So, hello everyone, and welcome to Retention Chronicles. Super excited to have our guest Pooja on today. Thank you so much for having or taking the time to come on the podcast. Super excited to have you here. I'm going to ask you to say hello and give a little bit of your background for our listeners.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with Mariah, and appreciate the invite to join you all in this conversation. And yeah, my name is Pooja Parikh. I work at Andie Swim and have been with the company for about a year and a half now and love it. It is very fun. And prior to joining Andie, I spent 4 years at Glossier. And then before that, I was in fashion as well. Started my career at Club Monaco, moved on to Hugo Boss.
Such a great background. I can't wait to dive into it. But I do want to acknowledge, so I've been at Malomo for about the same time, like a year and a half, which I don't know if you relate to this, but I feel like now it's like, okay, stride, like I got my stride, like it finally feels like it's like settled. I like know what I'm doing at the company, right? Do you relate to that? I see you're shaking your head.
Like, yes and no. I would
Right.
say that like every week I have is a little different. And there's like a new challenge that comes our way. My role has also changed so much over the course of the year and a half in a very positive way, at least in my mind. I started more in a planning and operations capacity. It's really just sort of expanded into uh like marketing, e-com, operations, retail, you name it. Our founder was out on maternity leave for the last four months, and so I stepped into her shoes for a little bit as interim CEO. Really got to experience like every angle of the business, which has just been so wonderful, really exciting, and have just learned a ton.
Wow. Okay. So that I wasn't even aware that you had also like internally in the company, so many different like avenues that um, so many different branches of the company that you were touching. So how did that like come up? Was it just like kind of naturally what the company needed, or like did you always kind of feel like you wanted to be more in the role that you find yourself in? Also, so cool that you got to be like interim CEO for a bit.
Yeah, I would say that so we're a very small team in general. So I would say that like a lot of people at the company wear many different hats. And I would say that like everyone is uniquely positioned here in the sense that we all love having a really wide breadth of responsibility. I think everybody really thrives in this environment. I know, like speaking for myself, I sure do. So it's been really fun, sort of as new challenges arise. Andie is like still relatively early on in its life cycle. The company's been around for I guess almost 6 years now. So it's been a while, but it's still pretty new. And especially given half of the company's life cycle has been COVID, there's a lot that we're still figuring out. Either we're entering COVID, leaving COVID, or figuring out what's next. So I would say that just in general, like it's been fun, and it's sort of like what I've always hoped for and wanted.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So how many people are at Andy currently?
We're like 25 people.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So we're 17 currently. So definitely relate to the smaller team wearing a
Mhm.
bunch of hats. What would you say? So, and I know you had mentioned a couple of other places that you were at before. What have you taken with you? What have you taken with you to this new company, new position? What has been like more of a translational move for you in terms of like, were you in operations before? What did that look like?
Yeah. So prior to Andy, my like full career was pretty much in demand planning. So inventory forecasting, product forecasting, demand trends, and just it's sort of like a hybrid between a finance and an operations role, if you will. And uh, at Glossier in particular, I started pretty early on in Glossier's life cycle, and the team was probably around like I think 90 or 100 people at the time, and very similar like to where I am now. Granted, it was on a larger scale. People wore a lot of different hats. You interact with all of the different teams, sort of every like especially in a startup world, you see how much everything is interconnected, everything is sort of woven together. A decision that, someone in our tech team or someone in our marketing team makes is going to affect planning and operations. And so that like collaboration and the cross-functional work streams that we had then really exposed me to so many different areas of the business, especially just because so much of what I did was demand related. So a lot of the like company levers that were being pulled directly affected my role and what I needed to what the information I needed in order to be able to do my role effectively. But yeah, I would say that like Glossier very much set me up for success in this role because of all of that exposure.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And going from like a larger team to a smaller one as well, like transferable skills. I imagine you saw like a lot of what your team was doing at Glossier, and that probably informed like things that now you were going to pick up because you have a smaller team. So that's
100%.
yeah.
Like so much. It's so funny because when I joined Andie, I was like, oh my gosh, here are all these things that we were doing, and I want to do all of them in Andie, like, and I want to do it all in the next 2 months. And then slowly started peeling back on that and saying, okay, we don't necessarily have the team, the infrastructure, the systems, the process, like the data, to be able to take on everything that I'm like hoping and dreaming of doing, and like just like copying over if I can. So we weren't really necessarily able to do it to that scale. However, there was a lot that I took away from that role that I was able to at least bring in to Andie.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell us more about Andie Swim? Give us kind of like if a listener isn't familiar with Andie Swim, what do you guys do? What's your forte?
Yes, so Andie Swim was founded in 2017 by our two founders, Melanie Travis and Leah Schwartz, who are married. And Melanie at the time, our current CEO, she was working at BarkBox, and no relation to like the fashion industry or anything like that. But she was going on a trip, or they were both taking a trip with some of their girlfriends. And Melanie was just having an impossible time finding a swimsuit that was high quality, well fitting, and a reasonable price point. Like when you look at the swimwear market in general, especially in 2017, it's changed a lot since. You have like your Target swimsuits, or you have your high end swimsuits that you could get on like a Net-a-Porter or
Mm-hmm.
at Saks or whatever it might be. And those price ranges could be anywhere from like 300 to 400 for that really high quality swimsuit. So she saw that there was an opportunity to find or to introduce a brand that simplified swimsuit shopping, provided high quality, well fitting swimsuits for women of all sizes. So inclusivity is something we really stand behind. And at an affordable or like midpoint price that was sort of like a black box in the swimwear market at the time. So we sell our swimsuits for $95 versus 300-400, but we're still providing incredibly high quality and long lasting suits. So that's Andie in a nutshell, but has really taken off since over the last 6 years.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's wonderful. Great job. I think too, like as I think through 2017, you had said, right? Like I I feel like the swimsuit industry, there's just so many different things that you can go into, right? Like you just explained of having different prices, having different quality. I also like I feel like so I grew up in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. And so like going to the beach every single day in the summer, that is a typical day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I just remember like growing up, it was always such a hassle or like such a big thing to like find bathing suits that make you feel comfortable and are also affordable. And of course, when you're younger, like you're going to shop different when you're older, right? But um that's like one thing that I just talking to like a bunch of my friends and always trying to get like recommendations because it's like where do you go because there's always like the Target bathing suits and then like Victoria's Secret also
Mhm.
like they had their time when it was like that was everything. If you weren't wearing a Victoria's Secret swimsuit, it was like, you know, where else are you going? So
Mhm.
it's one of those industries that I feel like maybe it's just because of where I grew up on the East Coast near the beach, but like was so heightened in wanting to find something. And it also is like you want to make sure that you feel comfortable in it because it's a bathing suit, right? So like you mentioned inclusivity and how important it is to Andie Swim. And that's one of the things that I feel like societally we're moving towards the right direction in making sure that there's an option for everyone and anyone. And it makes me so happy to see that brands are like, okay, like Andie Swim, we're recognizing this. We want that to be a core focus of our brand because that isn't necessarily the market norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of what you see in the swimwear industry is, these brands will find like a particular style or like consumer profile that they adhere to. So you have like your Frankie's bikinis, for example.
Mm, yeah.
It's really like very two-piece focused. It's definitely on the like skimpier side, and like there's an audience for that. But Andie is sort of um made as this like timeless swimsuit. We have a lot of like classic, very staple silhouettes. And then we introduce some fun additional options through our seasonal collections, whether it's like silhouettes or prints or patterns or whatever. But really trying to cater to a much broader range of customers, whether it's age range or preference. There's really something for everyone.
Yeah, I let's tap into that a little bit because I also just through my interactions with Andie have seen like that branding come across or that intentionality and like having it be kind of timeless or what were some of the other descriptors like classic,
Yep.
simple looks. So let's tap into that a little bit more and kind of describe like what's important from your point of view or from the company's point of view of like the branding that you want someone to have when they pop on your website or see your social media channels or whatnot.
Yeah. So we often go back to this phrase of wearing a swimsuit is the most naked a woman will be in public.
Mm,
And in when you think about that, comfort is the first thing that comes to mind. And in order to be comfortable in like a broad strokes way, there's two ways to approach that. One is the piece itself, the product, whether that's material and a fit. Those are two things that we have spent so much time perfecting, and continue to find improvements for. But then there's also the actual shopping experience. So shopping for swimwear, like when you think of like, I don't know, going to a Macy's or something like that, it can be so overwhelming. There's so
uh-huh.
many prints, colors, silhouettes, and like it's just like sort of all scattered around. And it's not necessarily something that you want to say, okay, I'm going to go into a fitting room, take off all my clothes, try on this swimsuit. Like it's not necessarily the most comfortable shopping experience. So we're trying to simplify that experience by guiding people into the right suits online. So whether that's like the fit quiz or providing like more realistic and accurate sizing information, showing swimsuits on models of different sizes, and really feeling like you're represented on the website in a way, just to make the entire shopping experience a little more comfortable. So I would say that that's sort of like the main angle that we take when we're looking at swimwear. And that sort of like classic timeless aspect of it. We want our customers to continue coming back to us. We want them to grow up with Andie. We want to make sure that there's something for an 18-year-old daughter and her 50-year-old mother to be able to come in and purchase. And we see that a lot actually, where
Oh, I love
we
that.
we had a couple of pop-up stores last year. And we would have so many like moms and daughters come in, and they would walk out both having purchased something, very different items, but they both were able to find something that they could be happy with at Andie. And so that timeless aspect really comes into play there, and we're creating this journey. So yeah, I think that's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love that example of like mother daughter relationship, like coming into this in your pop-up store and being able to find something. And I think that speaks, like you said, to the timeless aspect. Real quick, where were those pop-up stores? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yes, we had one in West Palm Beach, one in Sag Harbor in the Hamptons, and then one in Berkeley, California.
Okay, so cool. I just like pop-up stores fascinate me. So I like to ask.
Yeah.
We had this is back in New Jersey when I was in high school, but there's like one pier, so like a boardwalk that always has like a pop-up store every summer. So it's like a big thing, whatever. Um, so that's so fun. Okay, so
Yeah, it was like our first time dabbling in retail in Andie's history. So it was like, and especially for such a seasonal business, it's pretty risky to be like, I'm going to take on a 5-year or 10-year lease right now.
yeah.
And I have no idea or no benchmark on how it's going to do, or if people are interested in finding Andie in person. And they were like, people were super excited to experience us in real life, whether they were first time visitors to the brand or had been purchasing with us online for years. And they were just excited to be able to interact with us in person.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was actually going to ask if you knew, like, if it was like first time customers, people just kind of like wandering about, who like popped in the store, hadn't heard of Andie, or if it was more like loyal customers or repeat buyers of Andie, like who was coming in the store.
Yeah, I would say it probably gravitated more so towards new customers, which is part of the reason we wanted to do stores in the first place, is it's like sort of like a billboard, and
Hmm.
it really drives a ton of awareness of the brand. But we also saw a ton of our existing customers seek out the locations, knowing that we were there to say, okay, I can I can see these prints in real life, or like try on a couple of different suits that maybe I was uncertain about, having already browsed them online or something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Also it's just like I'm sure people were like, oh, this is a fun thing to do, right? Like go to the
Hmm.
store. There's a whole experience with obviously with retail, like where it's social as well, where you get to go, whether it's in a mall growing up or if it's in a pop-up store, or one on a boardwalk, like you're just like walking by and you're with family or friends or whatever. It's like an adventure that you get to go on. So that makes sense. I was gonna ask too, so with the split between retail and e-commerce, like you said, it would be very it might be like highly volatile to go into retail without having much information to see if that would make sense for the business as a whole. And so with that, how do you see Andie going into retail more? We've had obviously a couple of brands who come on here who are like majority retail or majority e-commerce, D2C. So do you like from the pop-up stores, do you have any predictions of like where Andie will go in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're still very much interested in opening new stores. There's some stores that we have in the pipeline for this year that we're very excited about. We're not going to be the brand that's going to say, I'm opening 30 stores next
Mm.
year. That's not us. And we're for a lot of reasons. The first being so many markets that we would open stores in or have a high concentration of our customers are so incredibly seasonal that it just doesn't really make sense for us to have a permanent storefront there. So I think we're approaching it from a more curated perspective, and wanting to use this as an opportunity to meet many of our customers in different places. and start testing around with the different pop-ups. So like we don't have pop-ups in Palm Beach and Sag Harbor planned this year right now. If something were to pop up, or if there's like an amazing opportunity, maybe we would consider it. But we also have such a vast majority of our customers in different areas around the country that there is still a ton of opportunity by continuing to test and find new locations for us to physically be in. But it's still very important to us to, one, use it as a brand awareness tool, and two, just continue to, like, at the end of the day, swimwear is a very intimate category, and so people do like interacting with it in person to really be able to decide for themselves whether or not the purchase is right for them. And so having that physical presence really offers that as an option.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And you tapped on like right there with the with what you said about it being like more of an intimate item that you'd want to purchase just because you want to like try it on and see what it looks like on you. And so you had mentioned this a couple of minutes ago in the conversation, but around like sizing guides and your fit quiz, can you tell us like more about what that fit quiz looks like and the sizing guides? Because I know personally, just from my own consumer standpoint, of like sizes range so much, just whether it's the brand or different styles within the brand. So how do you approach like even tackling that?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's never going to be perfect because there's just too much variation in silhouettes or people. Like we're not necessarily doing fits on like someone who's an apple shape or a pear shape or I don't, like the different body types. But we can get a little closer. We can use the data that we have on all of our style fits and silhouettes, and understanding, what maybe the customer is using it for, and understanding like, are you trying to like swim laps in this swimsuit, or are you trying to lounge on the beach all day? Do you need high bust support for more rigorous activity if you're playing beach volleyball, or do you want like a string bikini with that you can just sort of be free and comfortable in? And so that's part of our fit quiz that you don't necessarily get from a sizing grid, is really understanding like, what is your end use? Do you want a high compression suit, or are you comfortable with something that's maybe a little skimpier or two-piece or something like that? And then we do take things into account like your bust size. That's obviously a huge portion or huge component of a swimsuit, whether you're buying a one piece or a two piece. And then the other major piece of feedback that we take into consideration, which you'll see across our website, is torso length. So one pieces comprise the majority of our business, probably like 60%. And so many prior companies before Andie never offered two torso lengths. So what would happen is people who are wearing the one piece would constantly get wedgies, or like it would ride up in like ways that they were not comfortable with. And so this additional torso length really helps in terms of the comfort and how the swimsuit sits. And so by providing the length of your torso and like just getting some of that information in the fit quiz of like, have you had this problem in the past with your one pieces, we're able to help guide the customer into the right sizing for them, based on those various preferences. So it's a lot more than just saying like, your waist is X, your hips are X, your bust is X. It's really like end use, and what will make you most comfortable based on your height.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know I'm 5'9", 5'10". I don't actually truly know which one, but I've like obviously struggled in the past with exactly what you just described, of like one pieces or even like rompers or bodysuits or like anything that connects in that way, or like I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that covers all of them. Rompers. It was always a struggle because like most of the time I was just like it was not working. Like the way whatever piece of clothing it is, it just doesn't sit right. And I was like, for the longest time, especially when like rompers were really in, I was trying to find one every single
So
place I could
frustrated.
go. Yeah. And every single place I went, like it just did not work. And so it makes me happy to hear that now you're using, customer data, your awareness of like the industry in general and who is buying from Andie Swim or who needs a swimsuit to use that and be like, okay, let's offer two types of torso lengths. I've seen that with like jeans, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
like, do you need tall jeans or just normal jeans? So I think that's like one of the things that it's like me not being in the business, I would never think of that. But from a consumer standpoint, it's like, okay, I want that, which really goes to
Mm-hmm.
speak towards like why you want to think like your consumer, right? Because they're obviously going to see the problems that you might not see unless you're putting yourself in those shoes.
100%. Yeah, we really try to approach everything from a customer centric point of view, and really leading with what does the customer want? What is the customer asking us for? What is the customer not asking, or like what are they returning almost?
Mm.
Like what is not working for them, and then iterating from there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I kind of want to pivot. We've been talking a lot about the consumer and the experience, which obviously we love, because that is our bread and butter here at Malomo. But I want to talk more about like the operation side of things. So how can you kind of walk us through um, when you're looking at your budget, like how are you justifying spending across different budgets? What's your approach there? And it can be like high level or it can be tactical or it can be both.
I think that's a great question. So I think it's going to vary so much on your company. So like this is not Bible, and it's very different from what I've seen in the past. But for the so I think the main thing here to start with is it really matters what stage your company is in. So if you're just starting out, if you're early on building a brand, like you're in a stage of like needing to take risks, make big bets, getting your name out there, and that is probably going to require a lot more investments in things like marketing, brand awareness, um, getting your infrastructure set up, like your baseline expenses of, I don't know, having Shopify, like, anything
Yeah.
like that, just to like get yourself started. You need to get all your systems in place. It's going to require probably a lot of agency spend and professional fees in general. And you need to invest in the team doing the work. And that's like such a critical piece of it. You need to establish the right framework of like the team that's going to be able to sustain this thing. But that's probably where the majority of the dollars will go if you're early on in a business. And then as the business becomes more tenured, the focus really does need to shift from building awareness to scaling,
Mm,
and starting to shift your focus in terms of how to, like, instead of like how do we make this thing stick, it's like how do we make this thing grow and continue to sustain itself. And like it shifts from hyper growth to sustainable growth and profitability almost. Because you need to then, like, early on, your goal is like, okay, let me get as many people in as possible. And then it's like, okay, I've done that now. How do I continue to get the people I've already gotten to remain with the brand? And how do I do it more efficiently? So efficiencies could mean anything from like your marketing efficiencies and your metrics like CAC and ROAS, or it could mean efficiencies in like how do I reduce my inventory balances without risking top line revenue? How do I shorten my lead times? How do I save costs with my suppliers? How do I unlock efficiencies in my operations? I mean, we all know the Amazon effect. Everyone's expecting their shipments in 2 days now.
yeah.
So how do I make that happen for customers to make them continuously come back to us? And that's really just scratching the surface. So you start investing a lot more in the operational side of the business, I think, once you've scaled it to a certain level, and have to just be a little more calculated about how you're investing across those departments.
Yeah, it makes sense that you kind of see this swing between really fast, high growth when you're starting out. It's something new. It's something that you're trying to, like you said, kind of get the word to stick
Mm-hmm.
and just be present. And then you switch into, how do I retain these customers? How do I make sure that they're not just like interacting with our brand once or seeing our brand once? So, question for you, because I think about swimsuits, and I know we're going to dive into like seasonality a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But when I think of swimsuits, I think of, you want your swimsuits to last a while. And odds are, unless you live in a hotter climate year round, you're probably only wearing swimsuits for one of the four seasons. So, what do you see in terms of like repeat purchase rate? Like, are there a lot of repeat buyers? And if like what's the time between when someone would like buy one Andie swimsuit and then buy another one?
It's a great question. I would say that the average customer is probably shopping like more on like an every 6 month basis, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Okay.
like more frequently than most people would think for swimwear. But you have like such a wide range of customers. You have customers, we kind of do like last year we practically did a launch every single month, or
Wow. Oh
more
my
in some
gosh.
cases. And you have customers who literally buy something from every single seasonal launch we do, because they're all different. Or maybe it's like our hero suit, the Amalfi. We will launch it in different seasonal iterations and different colors and prints and patterns, and it's just like their favorite suit ever, so they'll buy every single one.
Mm.
So you have such a wide range of those customers, or customers who will only come to us when they have a trip planned. So like Andie swimsuits are made to last. We pride ourselves in the quality of what we're making, and that's how we're justifying the price of what we're doing, because we're investing in the materials that are being used to make the suit to make it last. Knowing that most people are not buying swimsuits multiple times a year. But for a lot of people, they have a trip coming up, bachelorette, honeymoon. Sorry, I'm getting married soon, so I think those
Oh
are
my
top of
gosh,
mind for me.
congrats. No, I love that. That's amazing.
um, uh,
I'm going on a trip
I
to Panama
uh,
soon, so I'm like, I need to start thinking about
exactly.
this.
So now you're like, okay, I have a need for it, or I'm taking a weekend trip with my family, and I want a new suit for it. Something I can wear in front of my dad, maybe. Like, there's so
Yeah.
many different use cases for when you might need a suit, that like it really does vary quite a bit. But yes, overall, it's not a replenishment product. Like coming from Glossier, you have people who are literally building their routines on those products and coming back to you every 4 weeks, 6 weeks to replenish that item. This is not that. And so it's been interesting, seeing Andie's data for the last 5 years, what those trends look like. And you always see this sort of swell every 6, 12, 18 months of people who are coming back because there's a new trip planned or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful insight for you, well, to share with us. So thank you. But also for you to have, like, because I know you've only been there, like we talked about in the beginning, for a year and a half, but to be able to go back like previous 5 years and see those different uplifts and different downswings of when people are buying, and know like, okay, it's usually 60 days, because that is surprising. Like I would think it would be longer, but when you
Mm-hmm.
explain it like that, in terms of, there's trips planned, or there's, you know, seasonality behind it makes sense when you paint that picture. And I know before we hopped on this call, we were talking about right now is a very busy season for you all. So can you explain, kind of as you're heading into May and the summer, what that's looking like for you all?
Yeah, absolutely. So for most companies, November, December is going to be the crazy time, or rather September, October in the lead up is going to be your crazy time. For us, it's right now. So this like Feb to April period is when we are planning out our peak season, and like May, June, July definitely comprises the majority of the volume that we see in a given year. We do have a business in Australia, which makes up a good portion of our volume. So we do see that uptick again, in like November, December as Australia enters summer. But the vast majority of our volume and Andy's business is in the US. Um, and we have to finalize production with all of our suppliers, get the goods over here, do the photo shoots, create the marketing plans, the go-to-market strategies. How is this going to show up on ecom? Like all of the pieces are all happening right now to make it as seamless as possible when we're sort of in the thick of it. And then in May, June, and July, it sort of becomes more of like a what's working, what's not, what do we lean into, how do we pivot, what are our customers saying, how are operations going, making sure that we're sort of staying on top of all of the changing trends. And that's like more just like hands-on. That's like more the execution phase. And right now we're in the planning phase.
Yeah. Which one do you prefer? I'm just curious. Planning or execution?
I prefer planning.
Okay. Fits with your title.
Yeah, yeah, really. I really love both. Like at any given point in time, like you're tackling both simultaneously for the most part. But I don't know, I like being organized. I like a little bit of
Yeah.
process. I like sort of putting all the puzzle pieces together and then like seeing all that work come to life, is so exciting because some of the collections that we're launching this summer have been designed for over a year. It's just, I love seeing all of that come to life.
Mhm. Very delayed gratification. I'm sure if
Yes,
you're looking at
really.
you're looking at a product and then you're going, "Oh wow, I love this,
Yeah,
but it's not going to be in the public eye for like a
yeah,
year or however long." That's a long time to wait for
yeah.
something
And our
that you're
small but mighty creative team, like just the photo shoots that they do, it makes it
Mhm.
so aspirational. It makes you want to buy every suit. It makes you so excited for that product to be in market and for everyone to see all of the work that's gone into it. So I think I have a slight preference for the planning side.
Yeah. Okay. That's totally fair. There's no wrong answer there either.
Yeah.
So you just spoke to the creative team and like kind of getting ready to prep or launch something. So can we talk about ads specifically and like ad spend? How are you kind of thinking about acquiring your customers? Because we've been talking a little bit about retention and with the pop-up store, more about acquisition. But in terms of ads, how are you deciding where those dollars are being spent?
It's a great question and probably one that I have a different answer to every month.
What's your
But
answer this month?
yeah, exactly. Right now. So I think like there is always going to be a subset, like paid search makes up such a vast majority of our business, and paid social in particular. And that's probably going to be the theme with any D2C business in this day and age, increasingly starting to diversify, but that's a different conversation. And when you look at the ads and the creatives, it's like, especially from an acquisition standpoint, it's these people's first interaction with your brand.
Mhm.
So how are we ensuring that we are, it's a tall ask to say, hey, represent our entire brand in this small square. And to be tasked with like how to most effectively do that can be tricky, and it's constantly changing, like I said before. So there's always going to be a subset of ads that maybe they feature our core suits, which when we see acquisition, most people are gravitating towards our best sellers because that's like what the brand is representing, and it's what they will most comfortably be able to convert on, just because like they know it's our bestseller, they know it's our core item.
Yeah, safer
And
choice for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a safer choice. And uh, a lot of our strong ads also show sort of like, here's our bestseller, so that they understand what the brand is representing. There's another side of things where it's like they want to see the campaign, the imagery, the excitement, the sort of like color that we bring through our all of our collections. And we always, like with these frequent launches, we always ensure that we're showing these collections and these campaigns in an exciting way, using the photos that we've done through these shoots. And then continuing to test with different things like what types of text overlays, or like maybe we want to do some sort of grid post and like show multiple images so that people are seeing more, since it is their first interaction. How do we show them more angles of a suit, or how do we show them more suits? Is it a carousel? Is it a video? So there's just like so many iterations of what you can do there. And a huge part of it in terms of advertising, and this has been a huge part of the marketing strategy for years now, is like, how are you working with like brand partners, ambassadors who really represent your brand? I think like a lot of people will refer to it as influencer marketing. Andie, like we also tap into like our own customer base in terms of like who we want representing the brand, and like how they're also, presenting the brand, and like whether that's like through our paid channels or through their own channels, like various ways like that. But really calling it an ambassadorship and representation of the brand. So there's so many different angles that you could take there.
Yeah, yeah, it's a hard-hitting question for sure because I feel like
Yeah.
every single guest that we have on the podcast is like I try and ask them about, you know, um just different marketing strategies, and it's forever changing, right? The target is always moving, and so I know it's always evolving. But to that point and the ambassadorship, I saw that you all have your collaboration with Demi Moore. And
Mm-hmm.
so is that kind of what you're talking about with like your, what others would call influencers, or your ambassadorship of like someone like a cross collaboration with Demi Moore, but then also having maybe like affiliate links or something of the sort for your ambassadors?
So for ambassadors, it's more so like smaller scale affiliate links, and like really just like, for lack of a better term, your everyday person,
Mm-hmm.
who is relatable and truly a representation of what Andie stands for, versus your Demi Moore. This is what, like, we consider this more a larger scale celebrity partnership. We've done the partnership with Demi Moore last summer, where we co-designed the collection with her actually, and launched the styles that we like co-created together. Did the whole campaign, but it was very much sort of like all developed together. The prior year, we also did a celebrity partnership with Claire Holt, who is Australian but has a pretty big presence in the US as well. But really resonated with the audience and our business. But we love the celebrity partnerships because not only is it like people who are super excited about Andie and love Andie and want to work with Andie, but it's also people who have large followings, can really provide a significant brand halo for us. So it's really sort of mutually beneficial in that way. And like, they're getting to work with a brand that they love, and we're really getting to grow the awareness and cement ourselves with a new audience.
Yeah, it's a win-win for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I love, so we're like for collabing with Demi Moore, when did you launch that?
It was
If you
last July 2022.
Okay, okay, very fun. Were you part of like, was it the creative team who mostly was like working with like what the design of the suit was going to be?
So our like product design team spent so much time with Demi, going through various fittings, picking color swatches, silhouettes, like there was a small subset of our team who did the photo shoot, which was in the south of France, and just like
So
so
cool.
beautiful, so
Oh my
idyllic,
gosh.
just like beautiful, gorgeous, amazing. She's incredible, like just insanely beautiful. I think like a role model for so many people. But the process was just like collaboration from the beginning, from inception. Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. That fascinates me. Like, I feel like that would be just so fun to work on a collab or just to work
Yeah.
on product design and whatnot. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Our
Uh
team is like just does such a great job in terms of here's sort of let's mood board the collection, and then here's some silhouettes that fit the collection. Even like the name of the suits tied to the shoot location. So like we had the Tropez suit or the Marseille suit, things like that, and then the collection was shot in the south of France. So it's all cohesive, it's all connected, and yeah, just a lot of fun.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you get to go to the south of France?
I did
Mm.
not,
Oh,
but it's okay. I'll
yeah.
I'll make it to the south of France
The
in a
next
future,
collab.
Andy. Yeah.
Yeah. The next vacation, hopefully, your honeymoon, wedding, bachelorette party, and you're going to be wearing all Andie Swim swimsuits.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so one last question because I know we're coming up on time here. Um, so Andie just launched with the Malomo Loop integration. We were talking about just like repeat purchases and um having an accurate sizing guide, hopefully to prevent against like returns and exchanges and whatnot. But I wanted to, of course, there's always going to be returns and exchanges, right? I feel
Hmm.
like everyone knows that. So, you want to make the process easy, and Loop does that wonderfully. So, I wanted to ask you, what if you happen to know, any like metrics or any data or just subjectively what you think a percentage of like a buyer lands on your website, purchases a swimsuit, are they purchasing like multiple sizes to try on and like return them? What is the whole, like I don't want to, what's the like post logistics or
Hmm.
reverse logistics? That's the word I'm looking for. What's like
Yes.
the reverse logistics process there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like really any e-commerce apparel business, you're gonna see pretty high return rates. We've spent a lot of time working through like why customers are returning, what are they buying in the first place that's making them return? Are there any trends to parse out there? And what we've seen, so the guess originally was like, oh, customers are just checking out with two sizes and probably returning one. And that only makes up 4% of our returns, actually.
Whoa. Okay.
It's a really small percentage, which makes me confident that the customers they're very well informed in what size they should be purchasing, which is great. Where we actually see a lot of the returns come from is preference. Um,
Mm,
Preference could be color, preference could be silhouette, preference could be, maybe this is not giving me enough bust coverage and I'm not really comfortable in it. And uh, like a lot of times we look at like swim return rates versus maybe a category like intimates, bras and underwear, because you need that to fit well.
hmm.
However, when you're wearing bras and underwear, you're probably wearing something over them.
Right.
Swim, you're not. So it really needs to be completely perfect, in every way. It needs to hug your body in the right way. It needs to flatter you in the right way for you to be comfortable and confident. And the reality is like every suit's going to look different on everyone. So we see a lot of return rates just because like I didn't really like it, or it just wasn't for me, or maybe it like yes, of course, there's going to be people who are returning it because it's too big or too small. You're going to see that no matter what. But we really do pride ourselves on size and consistency, and consistency across like the portfolio so that people are not second guessing if they're small or medium in Andie, because that's not a great experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I know we just launched with the Loop integration. And so, but I wanted to ask, so if you don't know yet, because at the time of this recording, we just had officially launched like maybe like three weeks ago or so. What are you hopeful around that like order tracking, now bleeding into returns and exchange tracking will help with like communicating to your customers so that they know if and when they go through the returns and exchange process, they get, these branded order tracking notifications so that they know, okay, this is where my return is at. This is where my exchange is at. How do you see that helping like your support team, your operations team, or your team just in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what triggers a return is when it's scanned into our warehouse. So from the moment the customer puts it in the mailbox to when they're actually seeing their money back or like that whole process happening end to end is sort of a gray area for a lot of companies. I feel like I return things all the time because I I love shopping and I primarily do it online. It can get so frustrating to be like, I have literally no idea what the status is. I don't know if it's like shipped. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I have a tracking number, but there's really no other information there. So I think providing that transparency through integrations like this is so incredibly helpful in and it like helps connect all of the dots. So like through all of our systems now, you can see sort of the customer's life cycle with the brand. Like our customer support team can see it sort of all live in one place now from end to end versus needing to say like, okay, let me go in this system and this system and this system and understand all of the different phases that this customer's order or like purchase life cycle is sitting in.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you brought up both from like the consumer standpoint of, okay, now it's all kind of like in one hub, in one area, you get proactive notifications. And then also the internal operational perspective where it's like, okay, not only do you have to go now try and like find what the heck is going on with this person's order when they put in a support ticket or, if you want to get that data, but it's all housed in one area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so super excited. I know I'm really excited to see what this integration means for you all. I know it's already looking great, so super, super, super excited there. And I know we're at time, so thank you so much for coming
Of
on the
course.
podcast. We always love chatting with wonderful people like yourself. So thank you for making the time.
No, thank you for having me. I feel like the time flew by and we could just chat all
Right?
day.
I know. Do you want to just like stay on? You probably don't have like anything else to do, right? No, I know. That's one of my favorite parts. Like these sessions always cruise by. And I love that they go so fast, but also at the end, I'm like, damn, they really fly
Yeah.
by. So yeah, thank you again, Pooja.
Yes, of course. Thank you.